Hey guys, it's Taylor and I am back today with a book chat on Cassandra Clare's Queen of Air and Darkness. This is the third and final book in the Dark Artifices series, which is the third Shadowhunter Chronicles series. I cannot wait to dive into it. I finished it about a week ago. Obviously, it is a monster of a book. I'm going to try to do this in one part, but I might have to divide it up. So let's see. Alright guys, so it's hard to kind of explain the book since it's the third one in the trilogy without giving any spoilers, but the book does follow a shadow hunter named Emma and also a family that she lives with, and their kind of journey after a war has broken out amongst their people. That's a really weird way to describe this book series, but other than that, there's not a lot of spoilers other than I can give you a little bit of my take on some of the plot points. I do feel like this is a very odd finale book. It summed up very little and I left with a lot more questions that I have answers for, because Cassandra Clare is going to continue this world, and so it's not a complete world summary, it's more of an arc summary for specific characters. And so if you're looking for a good like stopping point, this book doesn't really give you that, but it does give you kind of a soft ending, as I would call it, for some of the main characters' arcs. But it leaves a lot of things wide open, and so it has the feeling kind of a second book or a first book almost. The plot thickens, and the longer we go on, the more characters that are involved and the more dynamics. And so if you are into stories that have a lot of different characters and dynamics in it, you'll love this book. I'm gonna give this book A-. I honestly would love to give actually this book a B+, but since it's Cassandra Clare, I'm gonna give it an A-, and I will get into why I gave it that review with more spoilers, because it's hard to explain without spoiling. So that's all I have for now. If you have not read this book, if you've not read this series, anything like that, please click away now and then come back later so we can get into it and talk about it, because it is going to be a long one to say the least. And so if you don't want to be spoiled, I will see you later. Don't forget to subscribe before you go, of course. See ya. Okay guys, got my notes. They're a mess because you want to know what? This book was a mess. So we start out milliseconds after the last book ended. Like there wasn't even like a 2 weeks later. I mean, we are like literally, you could have closed the last book and opened this one and it would have just streamlined perfectly. So we are still, I mean, like Julian is still gripping Livy and her dead body, and it's just, I thought there'd be a gap, and so that for some reason, I don't know how to articulate it properly, but I was not a fan of the way that the book started just the instant that the second book ended, because it was jarring. There was no lead into it. If you're somebody that read Lord of Shadows when it came out, there's been a long period of time between reading Lord of Shadows and Queen of Air and Darkness, so to be abruptly put back into the world like that was shocking for most people, because I've talked to some other people and they felt kind of the same way. Quickly, we know, of course, Olivia's dead, Robert Lightwood is dead, and we have to have the funerals. Between the funerals, I guess Magnus, I think it's because Magnus was sick or something. Magnus thinks it's a good idea that when Julian comes to him and is like, hey, I have too many feelings, can you take them away? And Magnus is like, sounds like a plan, Stan. What? I understand that Magnus is always here to help a young Shadowhunter, but like, I think he really was doing it out of lesser of the two evils. I also think if he was in the right state of mind, he would have not done that in any way, shape, or form. So I do like that, the fact that he was like ill and his boyfriend's dad had just died I felt like his judgment a little bit different. Some may argue that he would have done that anyways. I don't personally think he would have. So then we get to Libby and Robert's funeral, and Julian has no emotions. And the only people that know what are going on are Magnus and Julian. So Emma's like, what's going on? Is this grieving? She can't figure it out. Then Ty, of course, is being like a little... We'll get to that later. So everybody's meeting at this funeral, since obviously everyone is there, and just it comes out that Tessa's pregnant. It was just like, Tessa's pregnant. Oh, cool. Bye. Like, that's not a huge effing deal. I don't understand, like, it just got passed over. I'm just like, this is a character, the main character from the first book series that's immortal, and she's having a baby, which is a huge deal, and we just gloss over it. That was really weird to me. Freaking Zara's dad, Horace, fitting name, becomes the Inquisitor or whatever, and he's the head of the cohort, so they're all like, death to downworlders, because we didn't just literally go over that in the last series. I don't know. The whole thing is he blackmails them because he finds out about their romantic relationship. So then Julian and Emma have to go to Fairy to find not only the black book, the dark artifices, what y'all get what I'm saying, but also Annabelle. So they're there and quickly find out that the cohort then has sent people after them to kill him. So it's just a suicide mission. I, for one, thought that that was really strange. Maybe because it was Emma, Horace was like, there's a chance they might come back alive. But if I were Horace, kill me now if I was, I would just assume what their mission would have killed them and not sent more people to kill them while they're in Fairy. I don't know. I just feel like if you were going to send people to kill somebody, why didn't you send people to kill Clary and Jace? I guess I didn't know where they were. I don't know. That part of the story I just felt was like really, it was an overkill. But also, you know, obviously Horace is a lunatic and doesn't think properly or logically anyway. So I guess that's a moot point. They get to a crossroad and Julian all of a sudden is like, just kidding, we're going to the Unseelie. And Emma's just like, goes along with it. The whole time he's acting like a complete weirdo. She never once really asked him what's going on. That I thought was really weird. That is the negative part of this romantic relationship that they have going on, because she doesn't ask him like a Parabatai, which by the way, I'm fully aware that I say that wrong. Cassie has said the Parabatai properly right to my face multiple times, and I know I say it wrong and I'm going to continue to say it wrong. Anyways, before people put it down in the comments. A normal Parabatai would ask, other than the fact that your sister was murdered, what is going on with you? Why are you keeping secrets from me? But since they're in a romantic relationship, it gets everything messed up. I'm just not a huge fan of this whole being in a romantic relationship and being Parabatai. I don't like those things being intertwined. So of course it takes all like 0.5 seconds for everybody else to figure out that they've been sent on a suicide mission to Fairy. And of course Christina's like, gotta blast. And Mark's like, gotta go. And Kieran's like, I'm going too. Christina, Mark, and Kieran are gone. That leaves Helen to watch the kids, which then gives Ty the perfect opportunity to be like, Kit, you know what would be a good idea? Let's try to raise my dead twin from the grave. Because, you know, we didn't learn that in the last couple books. I just really don't understand. This book made me realize that there's a lot of plot points that we've already gone over and people just continue to be idiotic. Like, we've already learned these lessons. How many times do we have to learn them? That that's not a good idea. But there's no real adults around except for Helen, and she's too busy trying to make people like her oatmeal. Ty somehow finds Shade, which everyone already knows by now is Ragnar, and I just cannot figure out, were we all supposed to know that Ragnar was still alive? Because they just all, when we finally come out and say like, yeah, Shade is Ragnar Fell, duh. Everybody acted like that was like a known thing. I was like, I remember him dying. I don't remember anybody saying like, he's actually still alive. We all guessed it from this series, But were we supposed to know this whole time? So then we get to meet Ash, which I'm assuming that if you are on booktube at all, you know about Christina. Is that her name? From Poland Books? Anyways, the theory that the Queen and Sebastian had a evil love child at some point. That is the best booktube theory come to fruition of all time. I don't think that will ever be beat. But I also think because Cassie knew possibly that all of us already were suspecting, they kind of glossed over that too. Cassie does that though sometimes. Sometimes there's like a big point and she just like glosses over it, but it was just very subtle, just like, oh yeah, this is Sebastian's kid. It's like, I got that backwards earlier. They went to the Sealy court instead of the Unsealy court. Once they went to the Sealy court, now they go to the Unsealy court. Oh, and let me back up. Diane, can't remember what her name is. Not that she's not important, I just can't remember. What is up with all of her parts with Gwen? I think that she's a great character, but her entire storyline of this entire book was her relationship, random relationship with Gwen. Like every scene she's in, it's just her and Gwen being like, we like each other. This is great. I'm like, was that necessary? Like, you have so many better characteristics to show in scenes. And I felt like the only thing she was used for in this book was just her relationship with Gwen. I don't know, it's weird. Anyways, Julian has a photocopied version of the Black Book. And there were multiple Office Max jokes that I was living for. Like, living. They're debating the fact that Annabelle's there, she has the Black Book, Julian let the Sealy Queen borrow the Office Max book, and yes, that's what I'm going to call it, to help get Ash back. And Ash was like this like demon baby angel fairy child. Guys, I have no idea what's going on at this point. So of course they get thrown in jail, clearly, because they're Shadowhunters in fairy. Duh. So they get down there, thrown into a cell, and then all of a sudden it's like, who's your cellmate over there? And then Jace and Clary just pop out of nowhere and are like, hey, what's up, guys? Like, the whole book you're like, where are Jace and Clary to fix this entire problem? Because clearly Magnus is just like down for the count, out of commission. And they're just like chilling in this cell. And why would you put them in a cell together? I don't know why that bothered me so much. But the fact that Julian and Emma were put in a cell together and then Clary and Jace were also in a cell together, it was like, are you jailers stupid? Christina gets separated from Mark and Kieran and then goes and finds Kieran's brother in this mysterious cabin in this like in-between realm thing. And it's just like a cabin in the woods. And here's my whole thing. Hear me out. If you have read A Court of Thorns and Roses series by Sarah J. Maas, the first thing I thought was like what is it called? Not the Wyvern. Is that the Wyvern? The cabin out in the middle of the woods, the lady that like sews out of people's body parts. That's what this cabin made me think of, and I was dying. I was like, this is gonna be bad. Ended up being good. Who could have known? When you read books like we do, everything, you just have to prepare yourself for negativity. She convinces Kieran's brother to come with her and free people out of a jail. Then they have to go find Mark and Kieran because of course they got caught. Clearly. Because Kieran's literally wanted by everyone on the face of the planet, along with Mark, always. And they were like, you know what might be a good idea? Let's go to the place where the person that's trying to kill me lives. He's also the most powerful person in fairy. Great idea. Kieran's brother marches Jace, Clary, Emma, Julian, and Christina up to the throne room like they're prisoners. And they keep trying to talk to each other and he's like, hush it back there. And I just like, it made me think of little kids in like an elementary school like lining up to go to recess. Besides the point. They all get to the throne room and all hell breaks loose is the only real way to describe it. They've got Kieran whipping him, beating him. He's all locked up. The whole 9 yards. It just goes into complete chaos and mayhem. And by the end of the whole shindig, the king is killed. Christina is trying to use her mysterious object that only people with Rosala's blood can use. We'll see about that. That's another thing that I have kind of questioning. And Julian and Emma are way too far away to get to it. And so their only option, supposedly, was to jump through a mother effing portal into a realm that is supposed to be like death, pretty much. We have Christina, Mark, Kieran, Clary, and Jace have all used the magic object to beam themselves out of there. We have Annabelle, Ash, Julian, and Emma, and Thul, the death realm. And of course, we're made to believe that the second they get over there, it's lights out. We pretty much jump to a completely different book. This was my favorite and least favorite part of the book was the portion where Emma and Julian are in Thul. I felt like the concept of there being like an alternate reality was off from what I expect from Cassandra Clare. Some can see that as a positive, some can see it as a negative. I just kind of thought that it was like an alternate universe was really strange in this context. So Thul ends up being pretty much what would have happened if Clary wouldn't have been a badass in the Mortal Instruments. And everybody almost that's alive in the Dark Artifices is dead in Thul and vice versa. Pretty much. The biggest thing is Sebastian is still alive, and so is Jace. And Jace is still Dark Jace, because Clary's dead, clearly. And, as you could assume, Livy's still alive in this alternate universe. So Livy is like uprising downworlders and Shadowhunters that aren't even Shadowhunters anymore because there's no runes, because there's no magic. And they're like, one, we gotta get the F out of here. This is like a complete and utter mess. But on our way out, we need the mortal sword because Cortana, pause. Can we talk about the fact that Zara has Cortana? How is that even a thing? Like, I know that it's a pretty obvious parallel that Cassie is building from her book to like our current political status right now, or that's what I'm gathering from it. I feel like she's yelling it pretty loud. But the fact that Cortana was taken from Emma because they needed to look it over and see how she was able to break the mortal sword, which they're constantly like trying to fix. They're like, we're working on it. Clearly that's not going to work. And then 0.5 seconds later, Zara's just trying to swing Cortana around. Like, so your kid's allowed to have it, but Emma's not, and nobody... Anyways, back to it. So they have to get the mortal sword, kill Sebastian, and somehow figure out how to get out of Thul and back into their reality. So they have to track down Tessa by using the cat, which I'm just like, love it. I just thought it was weird that Tessa's like hiding, I understand. But I felt like the Thul version of Tessa, I had to keep reminding myself that that's not the Tessa that we know. Everybody in that alternate universe of Thul is not actually the characters that we know because a significant part of their lives was changed, and so they didn't have that same character development. Also thought it was weird that Cameron, whatever his face is, was alive and dating Livy. So finally they figure out a way to then get back into their reality. They made a deal with Annabelle that they would take Ash. Ash was like, I'm not going without Dark Jace. I'm gonna stay here. And they beam out of there pretty quick. And you're only halfway through the book at this point. They get back and the clave, the cohort, whatever they're calling themselves these days, put out like a tweet that that Clary and Jace are dead. Like after all the BS that both of them have been through, they just randomly say that they're dead. I just was like, this is comical at this point. Totally forgot to mention, in Thole, they weren't Parabatai, Emma and Julian, and so it gave them a good point to then talk about their emotions because Julian had them for 5 seconds. I personally was loving Julian being evil. I think he's always been decently evil. I think it gives him some better depth than I thought that he had in the first book. So I was here for it. I was here for the drama. But I thought that it took away from Emma because then Emma's like literal whole focus the whole time is trying to figure out what the deal with Julian is. And I'm like, you are way too good of a Shadowhunter for us to be worrying about this right now. So of course they get back. Claire and Jace clearly are alive. They think that they're dead because they thought it was them who jumped through the portal, not Emma and Julian, because she was wearing Claire's jacket. Tricked ya. And so Julian then masterminds this whole plan that they're gonna show up, be like, you lied to everybody. Jace and Clary are alive. And here's the mortal sword. Hold it and tell the truth. And then he gathers all the Downworlders along with Shadowhunters, knowing that one of them is going to snitch. Crazy. He finds out that Horus is going to meet up with the Unseelie King, which is now one of Kieran's other crazy brothers that's taken over the throne. And they're going to meet together and be like, you stay in your spot, we'll stay in ours, and we'll be gravy. The whole thing was made up, and he's going to show up because they're like live streaming the whole thing. So everybody then portals or whatever, and they get to Alicante and they're like, get ready. And they're camping. I'm sorry. Shadowhunters camping probably is the funniest part of this entire book, other than the Office Max jokes. So this whole time, all this is going on, Ty and Kit are, well, Ty is trying to raise Livy from the dead. Kit is trying to be real supportive without actually supporting him. So they finally get there to Alicante, and Ty, right before this, what's going to be like the biggest confrontation of this entire book, is like, hey Kit, you want to try to raise Livy? And he's like, clearly Shade, who is Ragnar Fell, said that he's not going to help us. And Ty's like, well, we can use Lake Lynn. You know how in horror movies, everything bad always happens in a bathroom? That's how I feel about Lake Lynn. Like, if there's a body of water, get out of there. Ty tries to raise Livy using the letter because it was the last thing on the list that he needed was something, an object from another realm. That was the biggest surprise, other than Thole in general, to me out of this entire book. It totally slipped my mind. It was right there in front of all of us the entire time that they brought back this letter from Thole, from alternate universe Livy to Ty. And that was the piece of the puzzle that he was missing. So they pretty much handed this to him. And I like when a character isn't solely good. I think Ty was looked at as like this pure, quirky kid, whatever. And he's doing something that's really selfish and is going to have long-lasting effects that are probably going to be in this next series. They confront Horus on the battlefield. It's not a battlefield yet. Turns into a battlefield pretty quickly. And Emma gets stabbed to death. And she is dying / dead. And somehow their romantic Parabatai bond brings her back to life and they turn into true Nephilim. That part of the story still to this day makes no sense to me. Don't understand that whole thing about the curse and the true Nephilim and they turned into giants and they're walking around like, boo, boo, knocking everything down, don't care about anything. It turned into a Godzilla movie for 0.5 seconds there, and it was weird. And it took like everybody coming out and standing in front of him being like, we love you, come back. And then they just do. They're just fine. But the only rune on their entire body that's gone is their Parabatai rune. And I don't know if that's because that's the rune that made them turn into true Nephilim. So it's like it used it up. Because as we know, like some runes are permanent, like the Parabatai rune. And then there's some like strength and stuff that you have to reapply. And so I wondered if like that used up all the Parabatai energy and so that's why it was gone. I have no idea. I just know that all the rest of the runes were fine. They were still Shadowhunters. It was just the Parabatai rune that was gone. Of course, then once that was all done, Magnus is better. They figured out that the water from Lake Lynn was like the antidote for the blight and for all the warlocks, and so he gives him his emotions back. After everybody figures out that Julian and Emma are fine, back to normal, other than the fact that they're not Parabatai, which is like, I don't understand how they didn't die, because we have a lot of common themes popping back up from previous books or previous series, and we know that Jace barely made it through having the heavenly fire, and to my recollection, it was because he had angel blood, and Emma and Julian don't have angel blood. So I have no idea how they're even alive. I don't understand. That's a question that I have. Someone answer it. Will it be answered? Who knows? So then, of course, they're having to rebuild the government then. And they decide to let the cohort that are imprisoned at the moment have a vote in the new Inquisitor, because Penhalo Gia, I think, doesn't want to be in any position of power any longer. I think she's ill from a comment that I want to say that her husband made, possibly. Of course, everyone votes. Alec becomes the new Inquisitor. Upon Alec winning the vote for Inquisitor, Zara and her crazy cronies put knives to their necks along with like the guards that provided the knives, along with some other people in the crowd, and say to Alec and all the normal Shadowhunters, as I'm calling them now, that if they do not leave Alicante, then they will kill themselves pretty much in sullying the Shadowhunter name. And so Alec, being Alec, is like, alright, we'll leave. You know, this is only a sacred place because of the gathering of Shadowhunters. If the cohort is going to be the only representation, then this no longer will be our meeting place. We'll figure it out. We'll deal with it later. So they leave. I mean, everyone leaves except for the cohort, and now they're just locked up, warded inside the city, never to leave again. I'm sure that's gonna come into play in the Wicked Powers, but I'm just like, that is real dumb. The whole time I'm reading through this book, I'm thinking Cassie said there was going to be, I want to say, one proposal and one wedding. We're at the end of the book and I'm like, what is happening? There's been no proposal, there's been no wedding. They're having a party, and I assumed the party was, hey, we came out ahead and all lived one more time. Good for us. By the end of the party, Alec gets down on one knee alone with Magnus, proposes to him because they lived, and they immediately get married. And it's like the sweetest thing ever. They give Magnus this little like marriage rune pin, obviously because he can't bear runes, and Alex then like helps Magnus draw on his arm the marriage room. It was just so cute. Katarina like walked Magnus down the aisle and Jace is all like, that's my best friend, that's my best friend. It was a perfect way to end the book, but weirdly there were so many things that were still left open. To wrap up the end of the book, I'm going to go just by character. Helen and her wife are running the LA Institute now that they are no longer like exiled to the middle of nowhere, like Alaska or wherever they were. Mark, Christina, and Kieran are split up because now Kieran is the king of the Unseelie court because his dad and his brother are dead. And so he has to go rule, and that's what his people want. And he's not allowed to have any human lovers. Not lovers, that's not the right word. Significant others. And so they are separated for the time being. Christina reaches out then to Kieran's brother and asks him for his cottage that's in that like third dimension weird whatever's going on. And they just come up with this like solution that every so often they'll meet up with Kieran at the cottage and like live happily ever after. I personally thought that idea was really cool. I really like the idea of that threesome relationship. I started to not care about Mark's contribution to the relationship though. I don't know why, but I became really interested in Christina and Kieran's feelings towards each other, and then I felt like because Mark's feelings for both of them were already established, he just kind of fell in the back. So I'll be interested to see how that's going to end up working out if we get to see it. Then of course we have Julian and Emma. I guess they just are completely wrapped up. They're not Parabatai anymore. They can live happily ever after. I just feel like their ending was too perfect and the solution was too easy, and that's one of the negative opinions I have about this book. I feel like they got off easy, and I'm really happy for them. I really like seeing a negative side of Julian. Of course I'm happy that they get to be together because I love Emma, I love Julian, but I feel like it just like peaked and then just fell off. I'm happy about the ending, I'm just not happy how it happened. Then of course we have Ty and Kit. Kit has decided that he wants to go live with Tessa and Jim, and of course they have a new baby on the way. I'm interested in seeing the wicked powers, the emotions and the ideas behind him making that decision and how that's going to affect Ty. Ty of course now has like Livy's ghost from trying to resurrect her, I think, permanently anchored to him, and he's been warned that there will be consequences for him doing that, so I think that's going to be a big plot point in the Wicked Powers. Then we have Drew. Drew was such a good rock for this entire book. I felt like she really kept everything in perspective, and I really liked her point of view of just being that adolescent. I feel like we were lacking that from some of the other characters. I thought it was really interesting, her interactions with Jamie. I don't know how I feel about that. Something's weird about that. Obviously, there's also some interactions that she's had with Ash. A prediction that I'm stealing from somebody else, but I did have myself, I've just already watched a review, that I think there is going to be some kind of dilemma with Drew romantically, possibly between Ash and Jamie in the Wicked Powers, which I think is going to be really interesting because they both have this like good and bad thing going on, one more extreme than the other. But I'll be really interested to see what ends up happening because I think Drew is going to be such a cool, young woman character as time goes on. Diana, everyone knows now about her being trans. I think that was great. I think that it was good that they mentioned just at the very end that Alec felt like that was something that he needs to learn about and things like that, and that was going to try to take like in, be active in learning about that. And then of course we'll see what happens with Ash, because in the epilogue, Dark Jace comes back from Thol and is like, I'm here with Ash, let's kick it. I just need Clary. So in the Wicked Powers, we'll have a dark Jace and regular Jace. Clearly, we've already been through this once before, so Cassie's gonna have to figure out some way for this to be different than the Mortal Instruments. Will Clary and Jace get engaged? Will Clary propose to Jace? What will happen? What's Tessa's baby gonna be like? Who knows? I just know that my lasting questions that I have were, why didn't all of their runes burn away in just the Parabatai rune? Is it because that was where the energy came from? How is this whole thing with Christina, Mark, and Kieran gonna work? And what is the deal with them keep on calling her a princess? Is Christina a princess? We'll see. Anyways, that is it for today. My camera's about to die again. I'll have all my social media down in the description. Don't forget to subscribe down below. I'm trying to be better about making videos, of course. And my next video will be my 2018 wrap-up. And I will be heading off to Orlando tomorrow to go to Universal Studios and Disney. So, I gotta get to packing. But that's it for now. Tell me what you thought about the book. I know it was a lot and really rambly, but tell me what you thought. I want to talk to y'all about it. Until next time, don't forget to do what you did, guys. Bye.